Well, here we are. We're running down to the wire. The Stanley Cup of Canadian elections is just about over. Come Monday, we'll know if it's been the red team that prevails or if it will be the blue team that defeats the previous champions. But today I want to just chat a little bit about not just the national election, but the local election here in Lanark-Frontenac. Now, unlike many voters, I happen to know the people who are running, both at the federal and at the local level. So, now I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to actually know who you're voting for or who the candidates are. But most Canadians don't have a personal connection and don't actually know who the candidates are. But I happen to. So here in Lanark, the two main contenders is the incumbent, Scott Reid. Now, he's been the incumbent for about 20-some years now. I was actually on his board and helped him get elected the very first time as a Canadian Alliance member, way back when I thought he was a top shelf smart fella, and he is a smart fella. But, things have changed over those 25 years. Now, for those who don't know Scott Reid, he is a billionaire. He and his family own Giant Tiger. And no, I don't have anything against billionaires. It's always generally not a bad thing to know a billionaire or two if you get to. But anyway, this is just a little sort of like hobby for Scott. There's no heavy lifting. Gives him a little structure in his life. The $200,000 a year, well, that really is chump change for a billionaire. But he sticks with it. But I don't know. This election in Lanark is going to might be a little bit different this time around. He's always won by handily, like over 50%, usually. But with the NDP dropping out, and the Liberals coming on strong, I'm actually seeing a lot more evidence of the Liberals having a good ground game and a lot of Liberal signs on private property, far more than Scott has. So, but, even though Scott's a billionaire, I got a little bit upset. I didn't think he was doing quite the job for people back during COVID when all his constituents, all the small businesses in Lanark and Frontenac were being closed down and shuttered. But his business remained open, and he never said much about that. And I thought it was the job of a elected representative to make sure the other people could make some money as well, not just yourself. So, but, for the Conservatives, if you don't know who Scott Reid is, or if you haven't met him, or if you don't recognize him, if you come to Perth one day, if it's a nice sunny day, and if you see somebody walking down Main Street, Perth, probably wearing a pink shirt, and walking his pet goat on a leash on the main street of Perth. And of course, he's got a ponytail. But if you see somebody with a nice pink shirt on with a ponytail, walking a goat on the main street of Perth, that's probably Scott Reid. And, he's a real traditional Conservative, so it's likely that if you see a young person walking with him as well, who you're not quite sure whether it's a boy or a girl, that's probably Scott's stepchild, whatever. But anyway, that's how you can pick out Scott Reid out of the crowd if you don't know how. And he's your traditional conservative voice and candidate here in Lanark-Frontenac this year. So keep an eye out on Perth, and keep an eye out for people walking a goat on a leash, and you'll probably find your traditional conservative. Now, Michelle Foxin is somebody else that I know. She's running for the Liberals. This is her second go at. And Michelle is what should we say, a moderately attractive, middle-aged woman. And she comes, I know her family very, very well. Great people. Her mother-in-law and father-in-law, Bob and Hilda, are great, great people. Salt of the earth. They made their living the old-fashioned way, hard work on the farm, and did a great job. But Michelle's their daughter-in-law, and used to be a strong conservative as well, until she decided that, well, let me put it this way. She has a child, and the child doesn't quite know if it wants to be a boy or a girl, and this is all great for Michelle. She loves this tranny LGBTQ plus IIS, whatever it is, X, Y, and Z. She thinks this is all great, and I haven't talked to her for a little while, because last time we talked, she really, really wanted me to make sure that we could recognize on the passports that people who didn't know if they were a boy or girl, they could choose whatever they want to put on their passport. And I'm sort of old-fashioned that way. I still believe that there's only boys and girls, men and women, none of this in between, and you can't go back and forth as the wind blows. So anyway, I wouldn't do much for her, and let her know that. So she decided that she could no longer support conservatives. She would have to become a liberal herself to promote this rainbow agenda, this boys can be girls, girls can be boys sort of affair. So that's your two main red and blue team candidates here in Lanark, Scott Reid or Michelle Foxin. So two marvelous choices. I'm sure everybody would love to have them advocating for them in the House of Commons. But it just so happens I also know most of the leaders of the federal parties. And again, this is something unique. And I guess what else is unique here is, in politics, there's a unwritten code that, for anybody who's been involved in politics, there's a code of silence that you never actually tell the truth about what went on in politics. It's like the mafia code omerta. Never say the truth in public about politics. But I never bought into the political omerta code. So here's my little take on three of the four main candidates in the Stanley Cup of politics coming up on Monday, April 28th. And the first is, I'll say, Elizabeth May. Now, I know she's co-leader, but she's really the leader. I first met her about 25 years ago. She was a firebrand environmental lawyer, came out to raise hell in Beckwith during a water contamination crisis. And she was as loony and off the charts as I'd never met anybody like her, up until that point anyway. And Elizabeth May, the world was coming to an end, the climate was going to kill us, the global warming, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that was my first experience with Elizabeth May. And no matter how much she drinks, she doesn't get any more intelligible than what she was 25 years ago. And from the looks of it, she's no slouch in that department. But that's Elizabeth May. Now, she's not really a contender out here, not really a contender anywhere other than on the left coast of Canada. There's a few nut bars out there in on the sunshine left-hand coast of Canada that think Elizabeth May is something special. Then there's Jagmeet Singh. Now, I know Jagmeet from my time in the Ontario legislature, and let me share you a little story with Jagmeet, because he's quite a dude with his long beard and his fancy mustache, and he likes showing people how he twirls his hair before he tucks it up into a little bun and into his turban. But Jagmeet, he always puzzled me when he was in the legislature, because you'd see him ride into this old-fashioned single-speed bicycle around and around Queen's Park. And he was be there riding his bicycle, pedaling around, and he'd have his man purse on and his turban, and he was making quite a spectacle of himself. And, I thought, like, Lord jumping, he lives way the hell out in Brampton. How does somebody bicycle a single-speed bicycle into Queen's Park every day? That's 50 miles, give or take. So one day I was walking home back to my apartment from the legislature, and it was about a mile away from Queen's Park, and I see Jagmeet up in front of me, a couple hundred yards, and he gets off his bicycle, and okay, what's he doing? And I see him get off his bicycle, and he takes his bicycle and lifts it up and puts it onto a car carrier on this really nice, sporty BMW. Then he unlocks the BMW, hops in the BMW, and drives off to Brampton. So a nice spectacle, a nice theatrical show that Jagmeet was putting on for the people to show how environmentally concerned he was as a member of the Ontario legislature. Then we have Pierre Poilievre. But before I go to Pierre, the one I don't know personally is Mark Carney. But I think we can judge him by his actions over the last number of years, both as the governor of the Bank of Canada and the governor of the Bank of England, and his hidden assets and involvement with Brookfield, who happens to be the largest number one contractor with the federal government. They've taken in over $16 billion in contracts from the federal government. So they make Bombardier look like a slouch. So anyway, he's well connected, that lad, but I don't know him personally. I can only judge him by his actions. But then there's Pierre Poilievre. Now, I know him. The first time I met him was, again, about 25 years or so ago, when he was just a young fella, like 23 or 24, and he left the West, came to Ottawa. He was a very ambitious young man, all like 100 pounds of him and 5'5" of Pierre Poilievre, and he was a ambitious, motivated young man, and knocked on a pile of doors, and he got elected. And his ambition was always to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and he has spent the last 20-some years auditioning for the part, and he's auditioned so well for it. Like, he has his lines down pat. He's got the script memorized. I would say that he could probably give Justin Trudeau drama lessons. Like, Pierre has been doing a bang-up job auditioning for the Prime Minister's job of the country. And, and as part of being in character, you also have to change some of your style and your appearance and whatnot to be in character. And that's where you can see, like, when I knew Pierre, he still wore glasses. He hadn't had the laser surgery there so he doesn't have to wear glasses. And he was a pretty small, rinky-dink little fella before he started taking those performance-enhancing, whatever they're called, to jack up and bulk up. And, Pierre just didn't look like a masculine conservative man and leader. So we had to do a few things to brush up his appearance. Those are some of my thoughts from out here in God's country about this big red team, blue team showdown that we're all going to be enthralled with and watching on the edge of our seats on Monday night. But stay tuned. I'll probably have a few more thoughts to share with people about the personalities and the outcomes. But this is going to be an interesting one. The NDP have collapsed under Jagmeet Singh. The Conservatives always have needed a good, healthy three-way race to be competitive in many ridings. It looks like the NDP out of the picture. We'll notice the trends if the Liberals sweep the Maritimes like it's looking, if the Bloc holds true in Quebec, I think the election will be over long before the polls closed in Ontario on Monday night. But let's stay tuned and for political general election night in Canada coming Monday, April 28th. And make sure, get out and support the red team or the blue team, because just like here in Lanark, there's not much difference between them. See you then.